Hi, welcome back. I'm Lee Sharon, and this is Old Tavern Farm. We are well into spring now, and not only are our ornamental and cultivated plants starting to really come on strong, our seedlings are starting to be almost ready to put outside in the main vegetable garden, and they are healthy and happy, and I can't wait until the last frost date has passed. The frost date doesn't bother the wild and native plants, however, and we have lots and lots of useful, beautiful plants coming up. So anyway, it is time right now to go out and start collecting dandelion and stinging nettle. And I'm going to bring them back into the Old Tavern Farm kitchen, and we are going to infuse some oil to make this year's dandelion and stinging nettle pain-killing salve. So let's take the harvest basket and go and see what we can find.
I'm driving down an empty freeway, no waiting for the light to change. I'm seeing the sunrise behind me.
All right, so I've allowed these plants to dry overnight, and I'm going to add them into a crock pot or a slow cook or whatever, and I'm going to set the setting on keep warm, anything like that that you might have. Even the low setting is too hot to infuse these plants into the oil. So I am going to carefully Nettle is still, even when it's dry, it can have a little bit of a bite. So I'm gonna carefully lift my dandelion flowers. I did go out, after we went out together and looked for dandelion flowers, I did go out and gather the nettle that we found while we were out there looking for dandelions. Both of these are going to go into a pain relieving salve. So I'm going to infuse extra virgin olive oil, 8 ounces of oil per plant. So 16 ounces of olive oil. You can also use jojoba oil and sweet almond oil. There's a number of carrier oils that you can use, but I just happen to have this on hand, so that's what I'm using as usual. Anyway, so I went out and gathered some nettles, carefully, to go in the salve. So it'll be a dandelion flower and stinging nettle pain relieving salve that I'm planning to use on I have joint issues in my feet and in my hip, and so I am going to plan to use that on those when they flare up. So this will give me about a pound of salve, little over. I'm going to add 1 ounce per plant of beeswax to that. But before we do that, this has to sit here for 24 hours infusing at a very, very low temperature. So it's already on. I'm going to add my nettles. Carefully. Go. All right, I'm gonna measure out 16 ounces, that's 2 cups. Okay. And I'm going to just spread the herbs. Anyway, so I'm going to pour the oil over the plants. I'm just gonna add a little splash extra. And then I'm gonna just sort of make sure that they're all pushed down into the oil. And we're gonna let this sit for 24 hours and I'll bring you back tomorrow and we'll see what our oil looks like and we'll go from there. I got up this morning and it was very cloudy, foggy, a little misty and cold. So I was really happy to have had a beautiful day to gather our dandelions and nettles, and overnight we got this beautiful deep green oil. You need to keep your heat very, very low and just take your time. All right, so we're gonna take this over to the stove, fill the spout with water, bring it up on a very low temperature and let the oil warm up. It's cooled now and solidified. So we're gonna warm that up. And in this other pot, this is what I call my beeswax pot. I keep one pot available for only using beeswax in, because beeswax is wonderful stuff, but it's very sticky. Once it gets on stuff, it's really hard to get off. You can get it off, but the way I clean my pot at the end of the season is I simply fill it with water, let it come to a boil, throw it out in the gravel. Don't put it on your plants or your grass, you'll kill it. Just dump it gently in the gravel driveway, and then I just wipe it clean with a paper towel. So that works for me really well. All right, I've set up my pots on my stove, and I have everything on low, and I have filled the little water spout. This little spout leads to a well inside. This is a really nice single unit pot, and I have filled this spout with water and it's just starting to warm up, and if I can put my hand in the bottom comfortably, then that's where we want to be. We want to make sure and treat our infused oil with absolute kid gloves. I'm adding my infused oil into my little boiler here. It won't take much for that to come right clear again. I think I'm going to add a few drops of essential oil into here, and I'm going to go with lavender because it's one of my absolute favorites. I'm going to add my essential oil now. Just maybe a dozen drops or so. Let's see how that does. Mix it in. Gosh, it smells good. For me, lavender is very calming, so that is why I make my own medicines. Because I have white coat syndrome, even though my father is a doctor, I am not. And I've done some research on herbalism, and here's my point at which I make my disclaimer that you guys all go out and do your own research. This is something that has helped me and is very effective for me, and I've even given some of my salves to neighbors, and they've also found it helpful. So, but I am by no means advocating for you to avoid doctors or to take things that may not be good for you. And so, because we live in the environment these days that we live in, I want to make sure everybody understands I'm not a doctor. This just works for me. All right, moving on. Okay, we're going to add that into our beeswax pot now. And test the bottom with my hand. It's a little bit too hot, so I'm going to just turn the heat of the burner off completely. And I'm just going to add my little beads of beeswax to this. As can see, they're already starting to melt. Right. So there's our beeswax melted. I'm going to switch to this burner so you can see it a little bit better. It's got that warm water down there. Okay, now when you add beeswax to your infused oil, I'm just going to test the temperature. It's warm, but I would almost guarantee this is going to solidify as soon as I add it. So I'm going to get so you can see. Okay, so if you can see, that beeswax solidified right away. But don't worry, it will all come right. I am just going to turn my heat up a little bit. And if you can see, that is starting to solidify because beeswax needs a fairly high temperature to melt. And as soon as it melts, they will all come together. Everything will come together, and then we will decant it into little jars. I like to try to keep my salves either in the freezer or in opaque dark blue or brown apothecary jars. I haven't ordered my apothecary jars yet, so I thought I was going to have some smaller canning jars, but they're all in use at the moment, so